In the late 80s, late-night television looked completely different than it does now. Today, viewers have unlimited options when it comes to their favorite hosts. In 1987, NBC was the only channel providing late-night laughs with Johnny Carson and David Letterman. Back then, it was rare to see a person of color as a guest on one of these talk shows, and never mind hosting their own show. Even when black entertainers were invited on shows like The Tonight Show, they often weren't invited to sit on the couch for an interview. Stevie Wonder and Dick Gregory were examples of this. It wasn't until a relatively unknown comedian whose biggest credits were opening up for artists like Aretha Franklin, Tom Jones, and Patti LaBelle. Arsenio Hall got the opportunity that most comedians dreamed of, hosting their own late-night talk show. Hall took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and showcased his style by bringing his own flavor into the late-night scene. The Arsenio Hall show was special. It proved that hip-hop was mainstream, and artists like MC Hammer, Stevie Wonder, and Luther Vandross could generate just as much interest as any guest that Johnny Carson had. Hall revolutionized late-night television and drew viewers away from Carson, the king of late night at the time. However, Hall's reign would only last 5 years, as his show eventually lost viewers due to a number of reasons. Here's why the Arsenio Hall show ended. The Late Show starring Joan Rivers debut first aired in October 1986 to strong ratings. However, production behind the scenes wouldn't run so smoothly. A few executives at the Fox network would clash with the show's producer, who was also Jones's husband. The executives disagreed with the show's tone and the toxic work environment on set, and Fox would give Rivers an ultimatum: fire her husband or the show would be canceled. Rivers would go on to decide that the show would end with her as host. After Rivers was fired, the show was then renamed to The Late Show and had a variety of guest hosts that included Martin Sheen, Malcolm Jamal Warner, and Robert Townsend. In the summer of 1987, then stand-up comedian Arsenio Hall got the chance to guest host, and it would change the talk show landscape forever. Before his late-night debut, Hall was originally given a few weeks to prove himself as a capable host. "I'm playing around for 11 weeks on this Fox show. I put LL Cool J on, I put Houdini on, and the numbers popped. The ratings looked good, and they gave me that show to hold on to because they had a battle with Joan Rivers, and she left. I'm sitting there and it starts to work, and I realize instead of going after the old school and the people that had an allegiance to Johnny Carson, there's a generation out there that has never been on a talk show." When Hall originally signed on to be a guest host, the ratings improved while he was there. After the Late Show spot, he would then put his focus into co-starring in the Eddie Murphy films Coming to America and Harlem Nights. And he would also move on to host the 1988 MTV Video Music Awards. His performance was so well received that he would end up hosting the award shows for 4 straight years. Executive noticed Hall's relatability among audiences and never forgot the ratings increase from his time at The Late Show and his MTV VMA tenure as well. They would go on to take a leap with Hall and give him his own late-night show that would go against Johnny Carson, giving younger viewers an alternative, and with this move, Hall became the first black late-night talk show host in history. Decrease in viewership due to competition. The Arsenio Hall show remained one of the most popular late-night shows on television until the summer of 1993, when the late-night wars began to take place. Host of Late Night, David Letterman's contract with NBC was set to expire. Upset that he lost his job as the new host of The Tonight Show to Jay Leno, Letterman decided to take his talents to CBS and start his own late-night franchise, taking the name The Late Show. This new show would compete directly with Arsenio, who was already losing ratings to the new Tonight Show with Jay Leno. When David Letterman's Late Show premiered in September 1993, it immediately claimed the top spot among viewers. Many CBS stations broadcasted the Arsenio Hall show, but as soon as Letterman's show began running, most CBS-owned stations opted to air Letterman's show in Arsenio's time slot and would bump Arsenio to a much later slot or get rid of the show altogether. This caused a huge decrease in viewership for Hall. By the end of the show's run, Arsenio was bringing in a rating of 2.2, while Leno and Letterman were averaging 4.5 or better. The media's myth is that Hall's audience simply outgrew him, that his core audience, young and hip, wandered off to Letterman, limped over to Leno. In fact, being syndicated made Hall vulnerable. Comedian Jon Stewart would also launch his own MTV talk show, which targeted the same young demographic as Arsenio, and the show would air at the same time. As the late-night landscape started to get crowded, Hall began losing guest bookings to other higher-rated shows. As Arsenio quickly began to lose viewers to the new competition, Hall tried many different tactics to try and produce highly rated television. One way was booking controversial and highly entertaining guests. Back in 1992, then presidential candidate Bill Clinton was a guest on the Arsenio Hall show. He played the songs Heartbreak Hotel and God Bless the Child via saxophone. The stunt was seen by millions of viewers, drawing in huge ratings for Arsenio and making Clinton popular among younger voters. Viewers were only accustomed to seeing political figures on the evening news and political talk shows. After Clinton's appearance on the show, Clinton jumped ahead of his competitor, George H.W. Bush, and eventually won the election that fall. At the time, there was no better place to promote yourself than the Arsenio Hall show. Controversial guests. All of Hall's unique guests wouldn't have the same impact that Clinton's appearance did. In February 1994, Hall announced that Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan was going to be a guest. The announcement was met with immediate criticism. Following Farrakhan's appearance, viewers and critics slammed Arsenio for having such a controversial figure on and for not interviewing Farrakhan in depth. The LA Times posted an article with the headline, "It was a typical evening for Hall." Over the years, there have been rumors in which many believe that the Farrakhan interview was one of the reasons that led to the cancellation of the Arsenio Hall show. However, Arsenio himself claims that behind closed doors, he had decided to end his show before Farrakhan was even booked. My resignation was long before the Farrakhan booking, and that's on record. I was still trying to do great shows, but the bottom line is at the time, I resigned. The decision to wrap it up came about when I decided that I had done everything I could do and it was time to move on and try to be as effective as an entertainer in another venue or with another vehicle. After the show ended, Hall kept a relatively low profile. He got his own self-titled sitcom in 1997, starring alongside Vivica A. Fox. The show struggled to attract viewers and would get canceled after 7 episodes. According to Hall, at one point, he would make a conscious decision to step away from the entertainment business. I was determined to be there for my son's first walk, talk boo-boo, and whatever else. I didn't want to miss a thing. So I made a decision to stop working and put my career on hold. I did a few projects here and there, like voiceovers for cartoons such as Scooby-Doo and the Proud Family, anything I thought my son would enjoy, but that was it. After spending years being a stay-at-home dad, it was Arsenio's son who convinced him to be a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice, in which the former late-night host would win the entire season. Upon winning Celebrity Apprentice, it seemed to have rejuvenated Hall's desire to get back into work because shortly after winning, it was announced that the Arsenio Hall show would be returning to late-night TV in the 2013-2014 TV season. This announcement was interesting because at the time, Hall would be joining an already crowded late-night landscape. Arsenio wouldn't be competing with 3 other talk shows like his original run, but instead now competed with 8 other late-night talk shows, making it much harder to stand out. The revival of the Arsenio Hall show would only last 1 year and averaged about 1 million viewers an episode before being canceled. Since the ending of the show, Hall has returned to his roots, stand-up comedy. He has been performing stand-up regularly in order to keep himself busy. In an interview with Orlando Sentinel, Hall said that it was former late-night competitors Jay Leno and George Lopez who convinced him to try stand-up again. "I had to get back on stage. Don't think about killing it. Do 5 minutes, do 10, do 15. I've been on stage 3 nights a week ever since." The late night show which currently offers much more options than it ever has for people of color. But we'll never forget the man who paved the way for all of them and taught us the late night talk shows can be cool. Thank you, Arsenio.